You were never too sensitive. You were just too awake, in a world that prefers you asleep. They don't scream, they don't shove, they don't even raise their voice, and yet somehow, they make you feel wrong, invisible. Too much. You leave the room carrying a silence that doesn't even belong to you. Shoulders tight, jaw clenched, and the thought creeps in. Maybe it's me, but Carl. Jung saw through this long before psychology had a name for it. He knew when someone refuses to face their own shadow, they will wound others quietly through omission, dismissal, emotional withdrawal. And if you don't know your own patterns, you'll keep welcoming it. Over and over. Not because you're unlucky, not because you're unlovable, but because pain, when it becomes familiar, starts to feel like home. So let me ask you, what if every person who hurt you wasn't proof of your lack of worth, but proof of what you've been taught to tolerate? Jung didn't just leave us theory, he left us warnings. 44 of them, and they've been whispering in the background of every heartbreak you've ever survived. If you don't learn these truths, people will keep hurting you, and they won't even feel guilty, because familiar pain becomes invisible. So let's begin. Truth 1. If you don't define your value, others will discount it. Every time you silence yourself to avoid conflict, every time you downplay your needs to keep the peace, you create a world where your worth is negotiable. Truth 2. The people who benefit from your silence will always call your truth selfish. The moment you begin naming your needs, the backlash comes. They'll say you've changed, you're difficult, you're not the same. But it's not your truth they hate. It's their loss of control. Truth 3. The shadow isn't evil. It's unexpressed power. That fire in your gut when someone disrespects you, that anger you keep swallowing. It's not a flaw. It's sacred protection. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to defend you. Truth 4. People don't hear what you say. They respond to what you tolerate. You can say, "Don't talk to me like that." But if you stay when they do it again, your silence rewrites your words. Boundaries without action are just noise. Truth 5. Every apology you give for being hurt is a lesson in self-erasure. Sorry, I'm just tired. Sorry if I'm overreacting. But Jung would ask, why do you keep apologizing for your pain? What part of you was trained to believe that feeling is a burden? Truth 6. Trauma teaches you to mistake survival for love. If love once meant pleasing, adapting, shrinking, that's the shape of love you'll keep seeking. But it isn't love. It's recycled pain, disguised, replayed. Truth 7. If someone's love requires you to betray yourself, it isn't love, it's a transaction. A deal where you lose every time you say yes to what breaks you, just to maintain a peace that was never real. Truth 8. The mask you wear to be loved eventually becomes your cage, the easygoing persona, the always available reputation, the smile you force when you want to cry. It works until you forget who you are underneath. Truth 9. Emotional labor without reciprocity isn't devotion, it's exploitation. You comfort, you explain, you absorb the damage, and they call it love. But what do you get in return? Love that only flows one way isn't love, it's depletion. Truth 10. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow twice. The first time, maybe it was a mistake. But the second, the third, the 10th, that's not on them anymore. That's your silence giving them permission. Truth 11. Not everyone who understands you deserves access to you. Even toxic people can get you. They can mirror your feelings. They can recite your past back to you. But insight without integrity is just manipulation in disguise. Just because someone sees your soul doesn't mean they should be trusted to hold it. Truth 12. You're not too sensitive. You're just finally listening to your nervous system. That sick feeling in your stomach, that energy drop after a call, that urge to withdraw. That's not anxiety. That's truth whispering through your body. Truth 13. Loyalty to dysfunction is not virtue, it's conditioning. You stay, you forgive, you justify, but Jung would ask, are you loyal or just afraid? Afraid of loss, of change, of being alone. But staying in pain doesn't make you loyal, it makes you lost. Truth 14. If someone only loves you when you're easy to love, it's not love, it's consumption. The moment you get sick, say no, or disagree, they pull away. That's not rejection, that's revelation. They weren't there for you, they were there for your silence. Truth 15. Over-explaining is a trauma response disguised as logic. When you feel the need to justify, defend, or clarify what should be obvious, it's not about them. It's about your learned forethought clarity will make you unlovable. And this is just the beginning. Let me tell you a story. There was a girl, quiet, soft-spoken, the kind who made herself small in every room. She was always the peacekeeper, the nice one, the one who let others interrupt, the one who laughed at jokes that weren't funny just to avoid awkwardness. But one day, in a conversation that turned hostile, she didn't laugh, she didn't explain, she said, "Don't speak to me that way." And then she left. Her legs were shaking. Her chest was tight. But she walked anyway because she finally realized that being understood is not the same as being safe. Jung believed that each person must go through a symbolic death, the death of the false self. That girl, she buried the version of her who thought endurance was love, and what rose in her place? A person no longer interested in being palatable. Let me ask you something. When did you first learn that being silent was safer than being real? Think back. Was it a parent's tone, Atticus glare? A friend who ghosted one you cried too much? That moment you learned the truth was dangerous. That's when your real voice went into hiding, and from that day forward, people could hurt you in gentle, manipulative, well-dressed ways because the part of you that should scream had been sedated. But it's not too late, because these 15 truths aren't meant to make you bitter, they're meant to wake you up. And now we'll unravel the next 15 truths about projection, narcissism, emotional boundaries, and how to disarm those whose empathy as a weapon. You've made it this far. Don't stop now, because on SEO, know all 44 truths, you don't just stop getting hurt you, stop buying haunted by the version of you were told, lated it all just to feel wanted. They always say you've changed, not Barker's, you became cruel, but Baker Sue became clear, and in a world that thrives on confusion, clarity is confrontation. You start saying no, not loudly, just consistently. You stop answering right away. You stop apologizing for your tone. You stop shrinking to make others feel big. And suddenly you're difficult, not because you did anything wrong, but because you stopped doing what made them feel right. Carl Jung warned us once a person begins to reclaim their shadow, voice-spoken, unintegrated self, their energy shifts, and people who benefit from your suppression will feel it as a threat. Not consciously, not always maliciously, but visceralibus. Your new boundaries sound like betrayal to those who only knew you through your silence. Let's pick up where we left off. Truth 16. Healing will make you unrecognizable. Topable, who only knew you broken, they'll say you've changed, and they're right. But what they really mean is CR, no longer easy to exploit. Truth 17. If your love isn't allowed, Tovel, it will expire. Relationships don't die from disagreement. They do on one person starts growing and the other refuses to adapt. Love that stays stagnant is love that quietly rots. Truth 18. People fear your boundary. They benefited from your lack of them. They'll call you cold, guarded, harsh. But that's projection. What they're really saying is your self-respect now limits my control. Truth 19. When you stop over-explaining, manipulators lose their grip. They thrive on confusion, on endless dialogues that drain you. But once your truth becomes non-negotiable, they fall silent because clarity is no longer a conversation. It's a wall. Truth 20. Empathy is only a gift when it's protected by discernment. You've been giving too much to people who see your compassion as currency. You feel their pain more than your own. But love without discernment is a contract for self-eraser. Truth 21. The desire to be understood can make you tolerate the intolerable. You keep trying to explain yourself, topable, committed to misunderstanding. But the problem isn't your clarity, it's their comfort. Truth 22. When someone crosses your boundary and then gets offended, you've exposed their entitlement. Healthy people adjust when you express a need. Unhealthy ones retaliate, not because your boundary is wrong, but because they were never planning to honor it. Truth 23. You are not responsible for the emotional reactions of people you vote round. Guilt will whisper, be softer, be nicer. But growth isn't cruelty, it's clarity. And if your evolution wounds them, it was never your job to shrink to their limits. Truth 24. People don't leave when you become toxic. They leave when you become self-respecting. Watch closely. The moment you start standing up for yourself, people vanish. Not because you're wrong, but because you're no longer easy. Truth 25. Your triggers are not flaws, they are messengers. When someone says you're too reactive, Jung would ask, what memory just got touched? Your emotion isn't ad effect, it's information. Truth to 6. Projection is when someone accuses you of being the very thing they're afraid to face in themselves. They say you're manipulative when you set a boundary. They say you're selfish when you ask for space, but often what they see in you is what they refuse, tommied within. Truth 27. Some people are addicted to your dysfunction because it validates their own. You're easy to bear around when you're anxious, when you doubt yourself, when you overgive. But the moment you heal, they feel exposed, because your clarity makes their harder to ignore. Truth 28. When Sumian withdraws love as punishment, it was love, it was leverage. You felt at the cold shoulder after you said no. The silence when you stood your ground, that wasn't love retreating. That was control, collapsing. Truth 29. You don't have to explain your boundary. You just have to enforce it. They'll ask why. Push for reasons. Try to debate. But this isn't a courtroom. Your boundary isn't a discussion. It's a jar, locked and final. Truth 30. You don't owe anyone continued access to a version of you they feel. 2. You've grown. You've grown. You've grown. You've changed to don't laugh at the same jokes. You don't chase like you used to. That's not rudeness. That's revolution. Let me show you something. Jung deeply understood, but rarely stated directly. Every human soul has a gravitational pull, a psychological orbit that attracts situations equal to its self-concept. So, if your inner belief is I must be easy to love, you'll unconsciously seek people who require difficulty to bind. If your inner mantra is I didn't deserve too much, you'll settle for those who give just enough to keep you doubting. The universe doesn't give you what you want. It mirrors who you think you are. So now we'll reveal the 14 truths, including how to protect your energy from subtle predators, how to stop trauma bonding with people who mirror your wounds, and how to live in such unshakable self-respect that chaos no longer has key to your life, because you're almost there. And when you know all 44 truths, not just in your head, but in your body, you'll stop mistaking survival for connection. You'll stop bleeding for love. And you'll finally feel what it means to boo whole. Let's finish this journey, because these last 14 truths aren't about survival, they're about sovereignty. Truth 31. Your peace will trigger those who rely on your chaos. The calmer you become, the louder they get. They can't find you in the patterns anymore. Your silence, once mistaken for submission, has become your shield, and they hate it. Truth 32. If you have to beg someone to understand you, they're committed. To misunderstanding you. Clarity doesn't take performance. You should never have to audition for love. Truth 2 through 3. Some people don't want resolution. They want control. They'll provoke, delay, distract, not to fix things, but to stay in power. Jung knew when someone fears they're unconscious, they control yours instead. Truth 34. The most dangerous gaslighting is when you do it to yourself. You say maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm asking for too much. But ask yourself, where did that voice come from? Who taught you that pain is normal? Truth 35. Self-abandonment wears many disguises. Loyalty, sacrifice, spirituality, love. But if you have to disappear to stay connected, that's not devotion. It's a spiritual wound disguised as virtue. Truth 36. You are not difficult. You arrogized, not willing to self-destruct quietly anymore. Let them call you what they want. Labels don't stick to people. Know their truth. Truth 37. People who never had boundaries will always see yours as cruelty, and that's okay. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You weren't born to carry their emotional literacy. Truth 38. Manipulators confuse empathy with access. They think if you understand them, you owe them. But understanding someone doesn't mean you have to tolerate them. Truth 39. You can love someone deeply and still cause yourself completely. This isn't selfish, it's sacred. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. It means becoming so full. You overflow, not deplete. Truth 40. If your absence disturbs them more than your pain ever did, that wasn't love. It was dependency. They didn't miss you. They missed thy version of you that didn't ask for anything. Truth 41. The more healed you become, the more boring you are to people addicted to drama. They'll say you're distant. You've changed. You didn't engage. That's right. Because the chaos doesn't feel like home anymore. Truth 42. If their version of love requires your exhaustion, it's not love, it's performance. You're not meant to audition for care. You're meant to be met where you live. Truth 43. Some people bond through wounds, not values. And when you start healing, the bond breaks. They didn't love you, They loved your pain. And when you stop bleeding, they leave. Truth 44. The final form of self-respect is walking away quietly, fully, without needing them to understand. Why? You didn't need closure. You don't need a final word. You don't need to be right. You just need to be done. Let me show you what that looks like. You wake up one morning and you don't feel the ghetto check your phone, not to see if they're replied, not to reread the messages, not to rehearse what you'll say next time, because something inside you, not out of bitterness, but clarity. You realize the apology never came. The respect was never real. Their love was always conditional, and instead of spiraling, you breathe. You get up, make tea, stand in the light. You don't need revenge, or validation, or explanation. You just feel whole. That's the silent miracle. Jung spoke of the moment. Your identity's no longer dependent on how others treat you, because you faced the mirror and you didn't flinch. Let me ask you this. What's the cost of staying, of being nice instead of honest, of making sure they're comfortable while your soul is suffocating? You've been trained to fear the consequences of truth. But what about consequences of silence? Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege is earned through grief, through shedding, through disappointing every person who only loved your camouflage. You're here now. You've remembered the truths. You've seen the patterns. You've stopped calling pain loyalty, and now something begins. You become magnetic, not to everyone, but to those who recognize truth, who have done their own shadow work, who don't fear your death, who honor your no as much as your ease. Your life becomes lighter, not because there's less weight, but because you stopped carrying what wasn't yours. Your days become quieter, not because you're alone, but because chaos doesn't knock anymore, and your cell becomes louder, not in words, but in presence, because this is what it means to know all 44 truths. You're no longer available for self-erasure. You no longer mistake server-alpha connection. You no longer confuse a punctual with partnership. And you never again bleed for validation. You live, you breathe, you rest, and in your rest you rise. Asterisk, thanks for listening and watching.